Hi everybody, my name is Aliana. I am one of the interpreters and ambassador animal keepers here at the Memphis Zoo. And today for our virtual wild encounter, I am going to be introducing you to Dudley, and he is a blue-tongued skink. So that word skink, it's kind of a funny word. You might have never heard it before. It's S-K-I-N-K. It's like skunk, but with an I instead of a U. And that is a specific type of lizard, and it is a type of lizard that's from Australia. So these guys are normally found in western and northern Australia. That's where they are found in the wild. They are a type of lizard, like I said, so they are a reptile. So they are living primarily in the sandy areas. They like it really warm and really hot. And they are called blue-tongued skinks. So you can probably take a guess as to why that is. And as Dudley is kind of moving around here a little bit more, he might poke out his tongue, and you might be able to see that the tip of it is bright blue. So the color blue can kind of vary. It can be sort of blue-purple, which is sort of what Dudley's is, or it can be a really, really bright blue. And what that blue tongue does is it helps to keep them safe when they are out in the wild. So out in the wild, the color blue, it acts as a warning color. So whereas for humans, we think of the color red as a warning color, like a stop sign is red, stop lights are red, because we need to pay attention to it. Out in the wild, the color blue is usually something that animals are going to be able to see really well, and they're going to pay really good attention to it. So if Dudley were to be approached out in the wild by a predator, what he would do is he would open his mouth really, really wide. He would show that bright blue tongue, and that would act as a sort of a distraction to the predator. So he's sticking his tongue a little bit out now. As he gets closer to the camera, as he's moving around, you might be able to see it pretty well, hopefully. They are like other lizards in that they smell with their tongue. So he's in kind of a new place. He's been here a couple times before, but he's sort of still checking it out, seeing what's going on. And so they use that blue tongue to try to deter predators. So what it will do is it will startle the predator. The predator will kind of pay really close attention to it, and hopefully that would give Dudley enough of a chance to run away really quickly. So to try to get away super fast and to not get eaten. Blue-tongued skinks are also really cool because they are actually mimicking a different kind of animal, a different kind of reptile. So you might be able to see here, he has a pretty long body. He does have a triangular shaped head. And as I was saying before, if a predator were to come up to him, when he opened his mouth, he would also hiss really loudly. So he is mimicking a snake. So these guys, they mimic snakes. Some researchers specifically think they're mimicking the death adder snake because that type of snake also has a really bright blue mouth when it opens it. And that's a really venomous snake, a very dangerous snake that predators out in the wild like dingoes or birds of prey are definitely going to want to stay far, far away from. So Dudley is sort of pretending that he is a super big, scary animal so that if he were out in the wild, that would hopefully keep him safe and predators would stay away from him. These guys, it does a pretty good job. Their conservation status is of least concern. So they are not endangered out in the wild, out in Australia. They are one of the more popular reptile pets that are kept, especially here in the US. And so that is one thing that we like to talk about is responsible pet ownership, especially when you are thinking about getting a reptile. So they can be very valuable pets, very rewarding pets to have, but they need a lot of things to stay healthy. So as I said, they're cold-blooded like all reptiles are, so they need a lot of really warm places. They need heat lamps. They also need a kind of cool place to go if they get too hot, and they need their specific diet. So Dudley here is an omnivore, and that means that he is going to eat both vegetation and prey. So he likes to eat his salad a few times a week. He also gets bugs, and he also eats baby mice. So he eats a pretty big variety of food. We're going to see if he wants to explore the table a little more, kind of check out the camera, or he can just hang out here on my hands. So Dudley is what we call an ambassador animal, and he is part of our education department. So these guys, their role is to help us teach people all about different kinds of animals that they might have never seen before. So Dudley here, if you came to visit the Memphis Zoo, you wouldn't see him living in the herpetarium. He lives behind the scenes where we take good care of him. And so he lives behind the scenes so that he can have a nice quiet space because he comes out of his enclosure where he usually lives to come do things like this. Or if the zoo was open, we would have him out in the zoo to meet people. He's very interested in this side of the table. I don't know if he thinks that I'm going to feed him, I'm not right now, but he's sort of doing his thing, walking around. Is doing a nice demonstration of how snake-like he looks. As you see him moving around, they do sort of a serpentine movement, so they kind of move like snakes. And he really is mostly on his belly as he's walking around, so he does kind of look like a snake. If he were out in the wild and among a lot of leaves, a lot of brush, then if animals think that it's a snake, they're not going to take a super long time to investigate. They're probably going to assume it's a snake and try to stay safe.
All right, are you ready for some questions?
Yeah, I think we are.
Presley, age 6, wants to know, why is his tongue blue?
Why is his tongue blue? That is an excellent question. One of the really cool things about these guys. So his tongue is blue to try to scare predators. So the color blue in the wild, it means that there's something that you need to stop and pay attention to. Usually a lot of venomous animals have blue coloration. So Dudley's not venomous. He's not really dangerous for me to be handling him, but he is pretending that he is. So he's pretending to be really scary and venomous so that hopefully a predator will run away and not eat him. It's a very good question.
Cutler, age 10, wants to know what they eat.
What he eats, that is another great question. He is called an omnivore, and that means that he likes to eat both vegetables, and he also eats fruit and also meat. So he does get some salad sometimes. He also loves to eat bugs. Those are some of his favorite food to eat.
We've got a ton of fun shout outs for you, ma'am, who are all yelling hey, how's it going? Hey, girl, hey, from Chit.
Very glad that my friends are tuning in to see and meet Dudley. He's much more interesting than I am, so.
Oh, CJ, age 8, wants to know, what is his favorite food?
His favorite food? So his favorite food, I would say, is mealworms and crickets. So another cool thing about Dudley is that I'm actually training him right now. So I'm training him to walk to a target, which is a stick that I hold out for him to walk where I want him to sort of help take care of him. If I need him to move around his exhibit, or I need him to move somewhere to go out on program like right now. So if he walks to that place that I want him to walk, then he gets a mealworm or a cricket. And he's been doing really, really well because he really likes mealworms and crickets, so he's happy to walk where I want him to so that he can get that reward for doing that.
Lucy H. has a couple for you. She'd like to know how old he is, and do you know his birthday?
How old he is? I didn't address that. This is a good question. He is not full grown. He's about 10 months old. So I don't know his exact birthday. He came from another animal care facility before he came to live with us here at the Memphis Zoo. But he is not full grown. When they're full grown, they are about 2 feet long. So he's got a lot of growing to do. And yeah, that is a very good question. I forgot to address that.
But what about that birthday?
That birthday, I do not know his birthday, unfortunately. I could probably find it out because he would deserve lots of extra mealworms and crickets on his birthday, so I should look into that.
Presley, age 6, wants to know, do you enjoy working with this animal?
I do really enjoy working with Dudley. Blue-tongued skinks, I think, are one of the most interesting animals that I've gotten to work with. They have a lot of really cool things to talk about, like that blue tongue that I had never seen in an animal before. I really like the chance that I'm getting to be able to train him because I've never gotten to do that before. So Dudley is learning how to target, and I'm also learning how to teach him to target. So he is really helping me out in being a very good student and a very motivated trainer when I am training him.
Oh, we got our regulars. Caitlin and Ian are back, and they want to know if Dudley will lay eggs, and if so, how many a year?
That is an excellent question. So Dudley himself wouldn't lay an eggs. He is a boy. But female blue-tongued skinks, they are something, it's a really long word. I'm going to try not to trip over it. It's called ovoviviparous. And what that means is that the young do come from eggs, but the eggs actually stay inside of the mother. So the babies hatch inside the mom, and it looks like she's giving live birth, but really it's not the same as mammals give birth, but it looks like it is. So that's sort of a different way than some reptiles have their babies. Like if you think about turtles that lay eggs, it's kind of the same thing except the eggs are inside the mom.
All right. Katrina, age 36, would like to know, is Dudley often told what a good and beautiful boy he is?
He definitely is. He is. They have really pretty coloration. It does sort of, again, mimic kind of that snake-like look where they have the stripes on them. So I think he is very cool looking, especially that bright blue tongue that he has. It's very striking. And again, as I'm training him, I don't know that verbal praise really does much for him. He does have ears. They're kind of at the back of his head. So they're kind of hard to see, but he does have ears. He can hear, so I'm not sure if he can hear me when I tell him what a good job he's doing training, but he knows that he's doing a good job since he gets those mealworms and crickets. So that gets the message across.
So Eliza, age 9, wants to know, do skinks live alone?
Do skinks live alone? That is a good question. They do generally live alone. They only really come together when they mate, and the babies are on their own pretty quickly after they are born and able to hunt and fend for themselves.
And Caleb, age 8, can he swim?
Can he swim? I am not sure. We haven't tried. So he has, since he lives on the ground, these guys aren't climbers. You might be able to see he's got pretty short legs. So if he were to get into water, he probably wouldn't do super well in deep water. Shallow water, maybe he would be able to sort of walk if it was just a little puddle, but I wouldn't imagine that he can swim super well, and being out in the wild in Australia, there's not usually a ton of water out there, so he doesn't really encounter it very frequently.
All right, and Amanda's son wants to know, will he get any bigger?
Will he get any bigger? He definitely will. So he is only 10 months old. These guys reach full grown between 2 and 3, and when he is full grown, he's going to be about 2 feet long. So right now he's a little under a foot, so he definitely has a lot of growing to do, so he's going to get a lot bigger. He's going to need a lot more crickets and mealworms that I'm going to need to feed him.
And Dorman, age 7, how deep is his bite?
How deep is his bite? So that is a good question. He doesn't have very long teeth. He does have teeth that he uses to crunch up those bugs that he likes to eat so much, and any crunchy vegetables that he eats. So if he bit, it wouldn't leave a super deep indentation, but we like to say any animal with a mouth can bite. So I always make sure that I handle Dudley properly. You'll notice that when I go to pick him up, I'm not picking him up directly in front of his face because I might scare him, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, definitely don't want to scare. What is the rule here, though? Can't any animal with a mouth bite? And that we say at Memphis Zoo. Okay, Isaac, age 3, wants to know if skinks fight each other.
If they fight each other, that is also a good question. That I am not totally sure about. Since they are solitary animals, I don't really know what they would do if they were to encounter 2 of the same kind. These guys can live with other lizards in places like zoos, so they are not always living alone. They can sometimes live in mixed species exhibits, but I don't know if I know of any that live with multiple blue-tongued skinks.
Okay. I'm going to try to translate this one. Presley, age 6. Why do you use a stick to make him walk?
Make a stick to make him walk? That is a good question. So what we do with the target that I was talking about, what it has on the end of it is kind of a little plastic ball. And that just gives Dudley something to focus on and something to walk towards. And since he's an education animal and I have to go into his enclosure and pick him up and bring him out, we don't want him to associate our fingers, like if I were to point. That's a way that you can get some animals to walk to you. But I don't want him to associate my finger with food because I don't want him to potentially start biting, not because he's scared, not because he's angry, but because he thinks that it's time to get fed every time that I reach into his enclosure. So that's why we like to use a target, because it's a different stimulus. It looks very different, and so he can associate something different with the food that he gets.
We got another question from Caleb. Does Dudley shed any skin?
He does. So these guys, even though they look like snakes, they don't shed like snakes do. Like a lot of lizards, what they do is they shed kind of pieces at a time. So he's not going to shed all in one piece like snakes do. It's not going to come off all at once, that top layer of skin. It sort of comes off in pieces when he's ready to shed. So since he is growing, a couple weeks ago, he did have a pretty big piece on his back that came off as he was shedding. But as he gets older, it'll kind of shed off scale by scale.
All right. Liza, age 9, do you give him special treats?
Special treats, he does get special treats, especially when we are training him. So he really likes bugs, mealworms, and crickets, and he also likes baby mice. So those are probably what he's the most motivated for, what he mostly wants to train for. He does eat his salad, but I did offer him a strawberry one time when he was training and did the right thing, and then after that he didn't really want to take any more from me. So he wasn't as thrilled that I was giving him fruit instead of his bugs.
I do like how he keeps coming. It's a nice, beautiful shot of that pattern on his back.
It is. He's doing a wonderful job showing how much he looks like a snake.
Which is a great segue into our next question from Lillian, age 10. Do they all have a different pattern?
They all have a different pattern? Yes, they do. So the coloration, it kind of varies. So he has a lot of these black bands on him. They're all pretty much going to have at least some brown, but it's going to vary between having darker brown, lighter brown, some black. So he has pretty dark coloration, and I also am not sure how that's going to change as he grows. It's possible it might fade a little bit, but I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, I was even surprised too. Edward, the other skink in the herpetarium, is a much lighter color, so I was like, oh.
Mm-hmm. They look pretty different.
That's really interesting. Here's a fun one. Phil wants to know, where did the name Dudley come from?
Name Dudley. So that was actually a name that was chosen by one of our other interpreters that you guys might have seen on these videos, Max. And he chose it because he said he just thought that it fit. So that is what we went with. I kind of think it fits too. All animals, they do have sort of their own personality. And naming them does sort of make it easier to talk about them, to care about them. And so his name is Dudley, and that's what Max picked, and that's what we went with.
And Haley, age 8, does he sleep in day or night?
That is a good question. So he is diurnal, so he is active throughout the day more than the night. So he does sometimes nap during the day, but he is most active during the day. He a lot of times is up at his enclosure, sort of watching us as we're walking around, doing other stuff in the animal room where he lives in, and that's when he eats. And then at night, even though I'm not here, I think that he's sleeping most of the time.
All right. We've had a couple of people ask, how long is their lifespan both in the wild and in human care?
So in the wild, it's about probably 10 years. So in human care, it is longer. Somewhere they can live to be in their 20s. So a lot of reptiles are pretty long-lived. Some people don't know that. But snakes and lizards, a lot of them can, as I said, live to be in their 20s.
He's giving us a nice little shot of that tongue clip there.
He is. And that is another thing that can be different about them. So his tongue, right now it's mostly pink, and then there's a little bit of blue on the tip. Again, I'm not sure if it's going to get more blue as he gets older, because the other ones that I've worked with have had all blue tongues. They are totally bright blue.
Yeah, I was going to say, Edward's got a very blue tongue. Let's see, Lily, age 11, are they colorblind?
They colorblind. That is a good question. I'm not sure what colors that they see. As I was talking about the blue tongue, that is a color that a lot of animals can see very well, sort of depending on what kind of colors that they see. So I'm not totally sure, but he does have pretty good eyesight. He does rely on his smell a lot, but he is still able to see that target that I'll present for him to walk to. He's able to see his food on tongs. So he does have at least pretty good vision.
All right, we keep getting asked, most recently by Owen, age 10, how fast is Dudley?
How fast is he? That is, right now he's not really moving super fast, which I appreciate. He's not running too much. Now he's starting to a little bit. He really wants to explore that corner of the table over there. But if he were really startled, he would probably run really fast. But for the most part, since these guys have pretty short legs, I was saying they mimic snakes, and they also kind of move like snakes. They have their bellies really close to the ground. And as they move, they just sort of kind of slide sort of slowly along the ground.
Well, Dudley, you have a fan. Kinsley, age 4, says, you are just so cute.
I am happy to hear that.
Alex, age 13, do they have any relatives?
They do have relatives. So there are actually a lot of skink species. I'm not sure how closely all of them are related, but we actually have some skink species here in Delaware. We're not in Delaware right now. I'm sorry. We're in Tennessee. We do have some skink species here in Tennessee. They're not going to get as big as Dudley is going to get, that 2 feet long that he's eventually going to be. But there are several species that are in Tennessee, and these guys are really important because they help control insect populations, pests that we might not want around, and they also act as an important food source for animals that eat them. So like birds and any other bigger animals that are going to be out eating lizards. They are really important for our ecosystem to stay working properly.
I'm going to test your knowledge here a little bit. I think I was told by one of our herpetarium staff that Tennessee is one of the highest salamander states in the country.
I did not know that. I have only been here a couple months, so I don't know much about Tennessee, but that would be really interesting if that was true.
Can we all take a shot that you're from Delaware?
I was recently in Delaware. That's where I was before I moved here, where I worked with another blue-tongued skink before I met Dudley. So I think my brain sometimes reverts to talking about Delaware, but not there anymore.
Totally okay. We're happy to have you in the South. Let's move back to our questions here. Ella, age 11, does he have any siblings?
Any siblings? So he's the only blue-tongued skink that we have that came from that facility. So the mothers will usually lay on average about 10 to 15 eggs. So it's very possible that he was part of a larger clutch. But we only got one to use as an education animal. So if he does have siblings, I'm not sure where they are.
All right, we are getting a lot of questions about teeth and chewing and just how he swallows his food if it's something bigger than him. Can you go a little bit into that?
Yeah, definitely. So even though he kind of looks like a snake, I don't think these guys are able to eat like snakes are, the way that they're able to eat something that is bigger than their head is. So they do that. They don't unhinge their jaw, but they are able to kind of stretch their jaw to be able to eat. So Dudley isn't able to do that. So his jaw doesn't stretch, it doesn't open. So when we feed him kind of small pieces. If he were to get something really big, like a really big piece of lettuce, I think he would take bites out of it. So he does have teeth. They're not very big. Again, he's pretty small. He's still a juvenile, so they're going to get bigger as he grows. But they're not super long. He doesn't have big venomous teeth like you might think of a snake having. So he mostly is eating sort of pieces of things. We cut his fruit and vegetables up pretty small so that he doesn't have to take super big bites of them.
All right. And of course, we're getting that age-old question, can we keep him as a pet?
And you keep them as a pet, so they are one of the more popular reptile species to be kept as pets. They said they're pretty popular, but with any reptile, it's really important to think about everything that needs to go into what they need to be able to be happy and be healthy. So they need a big enough enclosure where they can have a really hot side that they can go if they're cold, and a cooler side if they get too hot. As I said, he loves to eat bugs and baby mice. I'm totally fine taking care of all of our reptiles here at the zoo, but I don't know that I would want to have bugs in my apartment if I had a pet reptile. So that is another thing to take into consideration, is what they need to be able to be healthy, the diet that they need. So with any pet that you're going to get, we just always recommend doing a lot of research to know that you're prepared.
We've got some more fun comments here. We've got Tanya saying hi from Rose City, Texas.
Hi, Tanya.
Amy just going, cute, cute, cute.
I agree.
And you've got a friend here, Emily, who says they miss you in Delaware.
I miss you guys too, Emily.
Let's get back to our questions again, of course. Let's see. Mandy's daughter Lori wants to know, how do they find mates?
How do they find mates? That is a good question. So they're probably going to be living in kind of the same areas, since they do, I don't know if I mentioned before, but they like to live in the burrows of other animals that they've left behind. So like I said, since they're not going to be climbing trees, they have really short legs. They're going to be going in those burrows. So around, like with a lot of animals, around the time when they mate, they are just sort of able to find each other. I think it's probably scent is what they use, because they do use that tongue to smell and are able to smell really well with it.
So we're getting some questions again about what exactly we're looking at here. How old is he, his name? Even a friend here on Twitter even commented, it looks like a walking shark.
A walking shark. My goodness, I haven't heard that comparison before. So this is Dudley, and he is a blue-tongued skink. So that word skink, it's like skunk with an I, if that's how I usually describe it. And he is a type of lizard. It can be hard to see since he is smaller. He's only about 10 months old, but he has a bright blue tongue. And what that does in the wild in Australia, where these guys are from, is that acts as a warning. There it is, a warning for predators. So the color blue is a color that a lot of animals in the wild really pay attention to. It's something that can signal danger. And so he has this bright blue tongue so that he can try to deter a predator from trying to eat him and making a snack out of him. And it was said that he looks like a shark, but these guys mimic a different kind of animal, not a shark. They actually mimic a snake. So I think this is a really nice way to see it. He's got this really long body. He also has a triangular shaped head, and he's got pretty short legs. So he would also hiss really loudly if a predator were to try to mess with him. So he is pretending to be a snake, and generally animals, if they see something with a bright blue color that looks like a snake, they're not really going to take a lot of time to investigate and see if it actually is a snake. So that hopefully would give Dudley enough time to run away really quickly and to not be made a snack out of.
We do have our friend Lucy wants to know, can he jump, and if so, how high?
Can he jump? I don't think he can jump very well. He does have these short legs, and also his body is so long So his front legs and back legs, there's a lot of space in between there. So I haven't seen him jump, but he's a pretty good climber. He can't climb up super, super high, but he has like pieces of wood and pieces of bark in his enclosure that he sometimes likes to get up on top of to get closer to his heat source if he wants to bask a little bit. So he can climb a little bit, but he can't really jump.
Now, guys, we are getting closer to the end of our segment, so we'll try to get all your questions, but I do apologize if we didn't. We try to answer them a little bit later on. But as we keep going through with that in mind, Hannah, age 6, wants to know, do they drink anything?
Do they drink anything? So they do drink water. Like all living things, they need water to survive. That's the only thing that Dudley gets to drink. That's really probably the only thing that he would like to drink. So we always make sure that he has lots of water in his enclosure.
We've got Owen, age 10, back with another question. Where in Australia is he from, and can they be found anywhere else besides Australia?
So they are found in mostly Western and Northern Australia, and they do have relatives that are found kind of all over the place. Some mostly centralized around Australia, but this species is found in Western and Northern Australia.
Well, thanks a lot, Dudley, for that.
I think Dudley might be signaling that he's maybe ready to go back and take probably a rest after what he just did.
It's all good when nature calls. Let's get one final question then before we say goodbye. Kalunda would like to know, are they calm and are they like being handled?
So it kind of depends on the animal. So we did get him when he was younger, since he's still a juvenile. And so he is getting used to being handled. As I said, since he's part of our education department, we handle him to bring him to programs and to things like this so that you guys can see him and meet him. So it is always going to depend on the animal. You always want to make sure that you handle them properly so that you don't scare them. Because sometimes if an animal gets scared while it's being handled, then that can mean that it doesn't want to be handled anymore. So we always make sure we handle him nice and calmly and nicely so that he likes it when he gets to go places and see new things. So that was our blue-tongued skink, Dudley, and my name is Aliana. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and learning all about him. You guys had awesome questions, and I'm always really happy to talk about this guy. We hope that you guys have been enjoying these virtual wild encounters that we've been doing, and we hope to see you sometime soon here at the Memphis Zoo.